Sound to Sound Pacific.
Houston, yes, clear. Loud and clear.
Pacific.
2423 live, we'll get the mobile station.
On the intercom. C7?
Yes, ma'am, we'll be clear, and 233 will be clear on N4 E. Edward, and so we'll both be at 50.
I was at work that morning in September, walking through the halls of NASA's Johnson Space Center. Mornings in mission control are always precise. The quiet hum of servers, soft beeps from monitoring equipment, engineers murmuring over telemetry from orbiting satellites. Outside, the sun reflected off Clear Lake, and the Houston skyline glimmered in the distance. Everything felt routine, controlled, safe. We were reviewing satellite telemetry, checking communications, and monitoring systems for an upcoming simulation. Colleagues sipped coffee, half listening to the chatter. Others focused on screens filled with numbers, orbit paths, and diagnostic alerts. For a brief moment, I let myself believe the world was ordinary, that nothing could disrupt this carefully maintained rhythm. Then, it happened. The monitors flickered. At first I thought it was a glitch, a minor hiccup in the network. But in seconds, every screen went black. Telemetry disappeared, replaced by a glaring red alert and a shrill alarm that made my heart jump. Confusion spread. Phones buzzed with messages and alerts, but signals dropped. The emergency alert system took over, filling the room with a voice, calm yet deliberate. All communications are to be suspended. Stand by for official transmission. The voice continued. This is an emergency message from the United States Strategic Command. Intelligence confirms the outbreak of hostilities between global powers. The city of Houston, including key NASA facilities, is considered a potential target for enemy action. Take immediate shelter. This is not a drill. The words hit like a hammer. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Engineers froze, staring at the blank screens. My mind raced. Disbelief, fear, and urgency mixed into a tight knot. The systems I monitored, the satellites I helped manage, the city I knew, all suddenly seemed vulnerable. I moved to the window. Beyond the complex, the port terminals and refineries stretched toward the bayou. Traffic flowed on I-45 as if nothing had changed, but each passing car felt like a countdown. Sirens began to wail across Houston, long, piercing cries meant for civil defense. Messages crackled over emergency radios, repeating the same chilling warnings. Some co-workers bolted for the exits, others remained frozen. My thoughts immediately went to my family. Were they hearing this? Were they safe? I glanced back at the monitors, dark and silent, realizing that Houston was no longer just a city I lived in. It was a target. And in that instant, the truth sank in. World War III had begun. They didn't give us much of a choice. Security personnel moved swiftly through the corridors of Johnson Space Center, guiding engineers, technicians, and staff toward reinforced emergency shelters. The fluorescent lights flickered as we descended stairwells that I had barely noticed before, their walls lined with pipes and conduit. Every step echoed against cold concrete. each footfall amplifying the anxiety that had settled over the center. A tall officer with a radio strapped to his vest caught my arm as I hesitated. "You need to come with us now. The shelter is ready below the facility," he said, voice firm but calm. I wanted to argue, to check on my family, to gather personal items, but hesitation was impossible. Around me, my colleagues were moving quickly, faces pale but determined, following the officers without question. The reality was clear. No one was taking chances today. We entered the bunker through a heavy blast door that groaned as it shut behind us. Inside, the space stretched wider than I expected. Low ceilings, rows of cots, crates marked for emergency use, and faintly glowing consoles lining the walls. The air was cooler, heavier, tinged with the metallic scent of machinery and ozone. I found a cot and sank onto it, clasping my hands so tightly they hurt. My mind raced to my family. Were they already moving toward safe zones? Could they reach them in time? The thought of Houston above, unaware of the imminent threat, pressed down on me. Around me, people murmured anxiously, whispering prayers or exchanging worried glances. Some checked their phones obsessively, but signals were already unreliable. Others sat silently, staring at the floor. The officer passed by, monitoring the area, and I caught his sleeve. "Any news from the city? From outside?" I asked, my voice tight. "Nothing confirmed yet," he said. "We're watching everything from here. For now, your safety depends on following protocol safe." The word sounded fragile, almost hollow. Could anyone truly be safe when the entire city was under threat, even if no attack had begun? Outside, Houston carried on as best it could. Streets still moving, lights still shining, and the sounds of daily life continuing under a veil of uncertainty. But here, beneath the control center, the hum of generators and the faint crackle of radios provided a strange reassurance. For now, we were alive. For now, there was a plan. I sank back against the cold concrete wall, trying to steady my thoughts. The city I loved hovered on the edge of chaos. And down here, all I could do was wait, hoping the measures in place, the shelters, the officers, the emergency protocols, would be enough to protect us when the world above finally shifted.
Out there, yes, clear. Loud and clear.
Pacific.
On the intercom. C7?
Yes, ma'am, we'll be clear, and 233 will be clear on N4 E Edward, and so we both be at 50.
The bunker was quiet, but the stillness felt heavier than ever. Every breath carried tension. Every footstep echoed like a warning. We had settled into a fragile routine, checking supplies, monitoring radios, and exchanging worried glances, when suddenly, the emergency broadcast filled the air. Static hissed for a moment, before a calm but urgent voice cut through, unmistakable and authoritative. "This is an official message from the State of Texas Emergency Management and United States Strategic Command," the announcer began, the sound traveling through every speaker in the control center and the bunkers across Houston. "Intelligence confirms imminent hostile action targeting key urban and strategic centers. Estimated time to impact, approximately 6 hours. All residents are ordered to take immediate shelter in designated protective zones or approved emergency facilities. This is not a drill. The words hit everyone like a physical force. The countdown, 6 hours, was enough to make the reality impossible to ignore. Phones, radios, and monitors across the facility buzzed and clicked, repeating the alert, ensuring no one could miss it. I could see my colleagues stiffen, some whispering urgent messages to loved ones, others pressing faces to screens, hoping for more details. The officers walked the aisles, reinforcing instructions. Check air filtration, secure food and water, and remain calm but prepared. Around me, the hum of generators and faint clicking of equipment became a background to the collective anxiety that filled the room. Every sound outside, the distant roar of traffic, the faint cry of sirens, felt amplified, a reminder that the city above was teetering on the edge. I pressed my hands against the cool concrete wall, trying to absorb the weight of the announcement. 6 hours. Enough time to act, but frighteningly little. Houston, the city I knew, the city of NASA, of ports and highways, of millions of lives, was now on the clock. Every minute felt stretched, heavy with the possibility of devastation. The official message repeated again and again over every channel. Take immediate shelter. Follow all instructions. Ensure your families and colleagues are secured. This is not a drill. The repetition was deliberate, but it did little to ease the knot of dread tightening in my stomach. Some people moved quietly, checking gear, rationing supplies, whispering plans. Others sat frozen, staring at the dim lights above, struggling to reconcile the ordinary world they had known with the impending reality. I thought of my family again, hoping they had reached a safe location, hoping that 6 hours would be enough to protect them. Above all, there was one truth we could no longer ignore. The storm was coming. And beneath the control center, surrounded by colleagues and strangers alike, we were all waiting for it to arrive. Sitting on the edge of the cot, I let myself close my eyes for a moment, though sleep was impossible. The dim light of the bunker cast long shadows across the concrete walls, and the hum of generators felt like a fragile heartbeat beneath the weight of uncertainty. For a few minutes, I let my mind drift, back to a life that now seemed impossibly distant. I remembered mornings in our modest Houston home, the smell of coffee mingling with sunlight streaming through the kitchen window. My kids would argue over breakfast cereal, laughter echoing off the walls, while my wife moved through the room with effortless grace, juggling schedules, errands, and endless lists. Those small, chaotic moments had always felt ordinary, but now they were treasures I realized I had taken for granted. I thought about the weekends at the park, watching my children play soccer under the wide Texas sky. The way they ran with pure joy, kicking the ball without a care in the world, shouting my name with that unrestrained excitement only kids can have. I remembered the gentle evenings on our porch, sipping tea while my wife talked about her day, the soft glow of the porch light painting everything gold. Those evenings were quiet, ordinary, yet perfect in their simplicity. The stark contrast with the present hit me like a punch. 6 hours. That was all the time Houston had before the world would change irrevocably. My heart ached for my family, for their safety, their fear, and the unknown that awaited them. Were they huddled in a shelter, holding on to each other as tightly as I wished I could hold them now? I clenched my fists, feeling the cold concrete beneath my palms, wishing I could do more, wishing there was some certainty, some control. But life had been stripped down to a single truth. All we could do was wait. I allowed myself a deep breath, and with it came gratitude. For my family, for the life we had built, for the memories that could never be erased, even if the world above was about to be unrecognizable. Those moments of joy, laughter, and love were my anchor. They reminded me of what was worth protecting, what I could never let go, no matter what happened. In that quiet bunker, surrounded by strangers, I felt the sharp sting of fear, but also a flicker of determination. The world might be collapsing outside, but the bond with my family, the life we had shared, remained unbroken. And if there was any chance to survive, any chance to reunite, I would hold on to it with everything I had. For now, all I could do was remember, and in those memories, find strength. Hours passed in a tense blur. The hum of generators, the occasional footsteps of officers, and the distant crackle of radios had become a strange rhythm, a heartbeat for the bunker that pulsed with unease. Every movement above ground seemed magnified in my mind. The faint rumble of traffic, the distant wail of sirens, the occasional thump of something heavy hitting metal or pavement. The official announcements had repeated themselves countless times. 6 hours until potential impact. All residents must remain in shelters. But hearing the countdown in real time made it feel personal, imminent. The city of Houston, normally sprawling and vibrant, now existed in fragments of fear and preparation, and we were trapped beneath it, powerless observers. I stood at the edge of the bunker, watching my colleagues move methodically through their tasks. Some checked supplies, double-checked air filtration systems, and organized emergency rations. Others whispered prayers, clutching photographs or worn family mementos, as if they could shield them from what might come. A faint vibration ran through the concrete floor, almost imperceptible at first. Heads lifted instinctively. Phones buzzed with emergency alerts that were already outdated by the minute. Through the radio, a voice cut in, calm but tense. Houston residents, continue evacuation protocols. Ensure all personnel are in safe zones. This is a final advisory before potential hostile action. Repeat, take shelter immediately. The repetition, meant to reassure, only heightened my sense of urgency. Outside, the city was moving frenetically. Cars streaming toward designated shelters, emergency vehicles crisscrossing the streets, and the faint glow of headlights reflecting off office windows and highways. It was a city on the edge of panic, yet meticulously orderly in its chaos. I found a quiet corner and pressed my hands to the cool concrete wall, trying to steady my breath. Memories of my family flitted through my mind again. My wife, our children, the small, ordinary moments we had taken for granted. I had no way of knowing where they were, or if they had reached shelter in time. Every sound above, every vibration beneath my feet, reminded me that the clock was ticking. The city's pulse had changed, from casual, day-to-day life to a tense, coordinated march toward survival. And down here, surrounded by colleagues and strangers alike, we waited, waiting for what we could not yet see, for what we could only imagine, for the storm that was closing in on Houston. In that moment, the bunker felt both like a sanctuary and a cage. We were safe, for now. Yet the reality above was unavoidable. The first signs of the storm were subtle, almost invisible, but their presence was undeniable. A city bracing, a population on edge, and a world teetering on the brink. The warning sirens had grown into a relentless scream, vibrating through the walls of the bunker. Every monitor, every radio repeated the countdown, minutes stretching impossibly long. Then, in an instant, everything changed. A blinding flash filled the room, searing through my vision, even though we were deep underground. The air seemed to explode around us, a deafening roar following it, shaking the concrete and steel as if the world itself had cracked in two. Dust and small debris rained down from the ceiling as the shockwave coursed through the bunker. I instinctively threw myself against the wall, heart hammering, stomach tight with fear. The first bomb, a nuclear strike the size of Hiroshima, had detonated above Houston. The city I had walked through, worked in and loved, was gone in an instant. The air above must have burned with a fury no photograph or film could ever capture. Through the crackling radio, the voice of an emergency officer came, strained but composed. All personnel, remain in place. Repeat, do not attempt to leave. Additional hostile trajectories detected. Brace for impact. Before we could process it, more explosions followed. The rumbles of hypersonic missiles striking targets across the city and the NASA facility. Each impact reverberated through the bunker, the steel walls groaning, lights flickering violently. Monitors displayed blinking warnings, alerts cascading with incomprehensible speed. Outside, I imagined Houston's skyline reduced to a silhouette of smoke and fire. Landmarks like the Space Center now likely reduced to rubble. The sound of the blasts was unlike anything I had ever known. A thunder that seemed to shake every molecule of air. A roar that threatened to shatter sanity itself. Around me, colleagues were shouting, some gripping the walls, others frozen in disbelief. The smell of ozone and heated metal filled the air, mixed with dust from ceiling panels. Phones, radios, and sensors crackled with intermittent bursts of panic. Messages cut off mid-sentence. I sank to the floor, pressing my hands over my ears, trying to make sense of it. My thoughts raced to my family, my wife, our children. Were they even alive? Did the shelters protect them, or had the city's destruction reached them already? The helplessness was suffocating, a cold weight pressing down on my chest. Then, slowly, the initial roar subsided, leaving a haunting silence beneath the bunker, broken only by the groan of metal and the distant, eerie crackle of fires consuming the city above. The magnitude of the devastation was incomprehensible. Houston, once a sprawling, vibrant metropolis, had been reduced to chaos, smoke, and ash. The war had arrived in its most terrifying form, and in the quiet aftermath, one truth hit harder than anything else. Life as we knew it had ended. The world outside was gone, and we were among the few left to witness its ruin.
Sound to Central Pacific.
Houston, MPS, clear. Loud and clear.
Pacific.
On the intercom. C7?
Yes, ma'am, we'll be clear, and 233 will be clear on N4 E Edward, and so we both get a 50.
Two days passed in the bunker, each hour stretching longer than the last. The initial shock had faded, replaced by a dull, gnawing tension. Food and water were rationed carefully, conversations were minimal, and the occasional update from emergency channels reminded us of the scale of destruction above. Then, the order came. The evacuation team, clad in tactical gear and moving with disciplined efficiency, instructed us to prepare for departure. The tension in the bunker shifted, fear mixed with a fragile hope. We were to leave the relative safety of the underground, to see the world above, now scarred and unrecognizable. As we emerged through the blast doors, a muted light greeted us. Dust hung in the air, thick and gray, carrying the acrid smell of smoke, charred metal, and ozone. The city was silent, save for the distant groan of collapsing buildings and the faint crackle of fires still burning. Houston had been transformed into a ghost of itself, streets littered with debris, vehicles overturned, and the once bustling NASA facility a skeletal ruin on the horizon. I moved cautiously, sticking close to the group, my eyes scanning for hazards, fallen power lines, or unstable structures. Around me, colleagues whispered prayers, shared worried glances, and occasionally broke into hurried conversations about families and loved ones. Many were still clinging to the hope that evacuation zones and shelters had protected them. We followed the convoy of emergency vehicles, sirens low but insistent, guiding us through the devastated city. The silence was eerie, punctuated by distant explosions as pockets of fuel or gas ignited, sending plumes of black smoke into the already murky sky. Helicopters hovered above, surveying damage and coordinating the limited emergency response. Every step was heavy with the weight of loss and disbelief. Landmarks, buildings, and familiar streets were gone or unrecognizable. I tried to picture what had happened above ground during those 2 days. The mushroom cloud, the hypersonic impacts, the chaos. And yet, here we were, alive. I thought of my family again, hoping beyond hope that they had made it to safety. Every damaged street, every overturned car, was a reminder of the fragility of life and the randomness of survival. The city we had known, with its vibrant energy and pride as home to NASA and millions of residents, was now reduced to rubble and ash. The convoy eventually brought us to a designated safe zone, a fortified area with makeshift tents, medical stations, and emergency supplies. People gathered in small groups, trying to reconnect, tending to minor injuries, and searching for loved ones. Radios broadcasted updates, fragmented and urgent, painting a picture of nationwide devastation, but also of pockets of organized response. Sitting on a cot, I took a deep breath, letting the gravity of our survival sink in. The war had arrived in its most brutal form, but somehow we were still here. And for now, surviving, navigating the ruins, finding my family, and holding on to hope was all that mattered. safe zone buzzed with a fragile energy. Quiet conversations, the shuffle of feet on dust-covered ground, and the low hum of generators struggling to maintain power. Survivors gathered in small clusters, sharing stories, exchanging news, and checking on loved ones. For the first time in 2 days, hope felt tangible, even if fragile. I moved through the crowd, eyes scanning every face, heart pounding. Each figure brought a surge of anticipation, followed by disappointment, until I saw them. My wife and children emerged from a group of evacuees, guided by a pair of emergency personnel. Their faces were smeared with ash, eyes wide and wary, but unmistakably alive. Relief hit me like a physical force. I ran toward them, stumbling over debris and discarded belongings, and they ran to me. My children clung to my legs, their small bodies trembling, while my wife wrapped her arms around us both, tears streaking the soot on her face. For a moment, the world outside vanished. There was only the embrace, the weight of survival, and the overwhelming joy of reunion. Around us, the safe zone continued its quiet flurry. Medical teams attended to minor injuries, distributing water and rations. Volunteers helped transport the wounded to temporary shelters, and radios crackled with updates on distant sectors of the city. Despite the devastation, there were signs that life was returning. Small, determined human efforts to rebuild and care. I took a deep breath, finally letting myself notice the enormity of what had happened. Houston, once bustling and vibrant, had been reduced to rubble in a matter of hours. The NASA facility, our pride and symbol of human achievement, was scarred and partially destroyed. Yet among the ruins, people had organized themselves. Emergency crews were moving through streets, marking hazards, and assisting the most vulnerable. Clutching my family close, I felt the first flicker of determination since the attack, a promise that we would survive, rebuild, and protect what remained. The city might be devastated, but humanity's resilience was palpable in every tent, every helping hand, every cautious smile. For now, we were together. That was enough. The war had left its mark, yes, but in the faces around me, in the efforts to restore some sense of order, I saw the first signs of recovery. The road ahead would be long, but as long as we held on to each other, there was a path forward. And in that quiet moment, amidst the dust and smoke, hope, tentative but real, began to take root. The safe zone grew still as the emergency broadcast flickered to life on every screen, every radio channel, and even the projection monitors inside temporary shelters. Survivors paused, their eyes fixed on the image of the President of the United States, his face grave but resolute, framed by the flag and the emblem of the office. "My fellow Americans," he began, voice steady, carrying across the stunned silence of the nation. "Today our country has faced a devastating and unprecedented attack. The city of Houston, our NASA facilities, and other critical locations have been targeted by acts of aggression meant to shatter our spirit. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. In the safe zone, I clutched my family close, feeling the raw tremor of fear and grief slowly mingle with a flicker of hope. To those responsible, know this: the United States will not be broken. Our people, our communities, and our nation's institutions have been tested, and we will respond with the full force of our collective resilience and strength. The President's words were calm, but beneath the composure lay a promise of action. He detailed immediate steps: the mobilization of emergency response teams, coordination with remaining military assets, and the establishment of secure evacuation and recovery zones across the affected regions. He spoke directly to survivors, urging calm, vigilance, and mutual support. Houston may be in ruins, but our spirit is not. NASA, the symbol of American ingenuity and exploration, may have been struck, yet its mission, its people, and our pursuit of knowledge endure. We will rebuild. We will protect what remains, and we will stand united as Americans against any who threaten our homeland. I watched the reactions around me: tears, silent nods, clasped hands, and quiet murmurs of resolve. In those faces, I saw what the President's message was meant to ignite: courage, determination, and the understanding that survival was not just personal, but collective. He concluded with a direct address to the nation's survivors: rebuild your communities, protect one another, look to the future even in the face of devastation. Together, we will recover. Together, we will endure. And together, we will ensure that the values, freedoms, and resilience of the United States are never diminished. As the broadcast ended, the screens went dark, leaving only the low hum of generators and the distant crackle of emergency radios. Around me, people began to move with purpose. First steps toward organizing, caring for the wounded, and searching for others lost in the chaos. I held my family tighter, feeling a surge of resolve. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but the President's words were a spark, a reminder that even in the shadow of destruction, humanity endured. Outside the ruins of Houston, life would begin again, slow, painful, but unstoppable. The ruins of Houston stretched endlessly before us, a shattered city, a testament to the destructive power of war. Yet amid the debris, a spark of determination ignited within me. The past 2 days had taught me that survival alone was not enough. To protect what remained, action was required. Volunteers and emergency personnel were organizing rescue efforts, clearing rubble and tending to the injured. I joined a small team assigned to coordinate communication between temporary shelters, bringing my knowledge of NASA operations and satellite technology into play. Every radio signal, every portable network became a lifeline in the chaos. Then came the announcement that changed everything. A direct transmission from NASA's control center, still partially operational despite the attacks, crackled through every emergency channel. For the first time in history, the United States would respond not only on land, air, and sea, but from space. Our satellites are online and fully operational, the voice reported. initiating targeted measures against hostile communications and orbital assets belonging to the aggressor nation. All in-flight satellites will be neutralized, disrupting their ability to coordinate attacks or gather intelligence. I felt a surge of awe and pride. The very institution I had dedicated my life to, NASA, was now the spearhead of a response that would cripple the enemy's network and protect our nation from further strikes. From the orbiting platforms above, precise systems targeted hostile satellites, sending pulses that fried circuits, severed communication links, and left their space infrastructure in ruins. The message was clear. The United States would not be cornered, and its reach extended far beyond the atmosphere. On the ground, the effect was immediate. Confused enemy transmissions went silent. Unmanned drones fell from the sky, guided missiles lost direction, and the web of coordinated attacks disintegrated. It was a first-of-its-kind operation, simultaneous defense and retaliation executed from space. I continued my work in the field, assisting with communication arrays, coordinating evacuations, and helping survivors navigate the devastated streets. Around me, a sense of unity began to emerge. Civilians, military personnel, and emergency teams were bound together by purpose. Every repaired radio, every cleared road, every act of assistance became part of a collective stand against destruction. Even amidst the ash and smoke, hope took root. The city may have been scarred, the NASA facilities damaged, but the spirit of human ingenuity and resilience had never been clearer. For the first time since the attacks, it felt as though we were not merely surviving. We were actively defending, actively shaping the outcome. As I looked up at the sky, imagining the satellites above neutralizing threats, I realized this was more than a fight for Houston. It was a declaration. The United States would endure, its people would fight, and its ingenuity would ensure that even from the void of space, no enemy could escape its reach. And in that moment, standing among the ruins with my family safe at my side, I understood the power of taking a stand for our city, our country, and the future.
Yes, clear. Loud and clear.
Pacific.
On the intercom. C7?
Yes, ma'am, we'll be clear, and 233 will be clear on the N4 E Edward, and so we'll both be at 50.
The hours following NASA's orbital intervention were tense, charged with anticipation. On the ground, survivors, emergency personnel, and military units braced themselves, knowing that the decisive phase of the response was about to begin. The city of Houston, still scarred and smoldering, had become a hub of resilience, a testament to human survival in the face of unprecedented destruction. Then came the order, from the highest levels of command, transmitted to every operational unit, every aircraft, and every strategic missile site. The final strike was authorized. For the first time in history, the United States would unleash a coordinated series of attacks, nuclear warheads and hypersonic missiles, precisely targeted to eliminate the enemy's capacity to wage war. I watched from the control arrays as the missiles launched, streaking across the sky, with blinding speed, while satellites above ensured exact targeting. Nuclear payloads descended on strategic military installations, communication hubs, and logistical centers, reducing them to molten ash. Hypersonic missiles followed, obliterating any remaining forces, leaving nothing but scorched earth and crumbling infrastructure in their wake. The enemy's cities fell silent, one after another, their once coordinated defenses rendered powerless. On the streets of Houston, we could only follow the updates in stunned silence. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and ozone from the blasts, yet the tension slowly shifted from fear to grim satisfaction. Every report confirmed the relentless precision of the strikes, the complete incapacitation of the enemy, and the systematic dismantling of their ability to resist. It was a war of extremes, devastation for those who sought to destroy us, survival for those who had endured. The skies above, still monitored by NASA satellites, transmitted images of cities leveled, weapon systems neutralized, and communication networks obliterated. The message was unmistakable. Any attempt to threaten the United States would meet total and irrevocable response. Hours passed, and reports of surrender began to trickle in. Leaders of the aggressor nation had no choice. Their command and control destroyed, their military annihilated, their civilian centers in ruins. Predicament replaced pride. The world witnessed history, a nation defending itself with unprecedented coordination, precision, and resolve. As I stood among the survivors, watching the first signs of cautious relief ripple through Houston, I felt the enormity of what had happened. The war had reached its apex, and through unity, ingenuity, and unyielding courage, the United States had prevailed. For the first time since the attacks, the future seemed attainable. Houston might be in ruins, but the people had endured. NASA's unprecedented orbital defense had changed the course of history, and the enemy had been forced to submit to an unassailable force. And in that moment, with my family safe at my side, I understood what it meant to witness the final stand, the moment when survival became victory and resilience became the defining legacy of our nation.